My name is Laura Parker, and I am the costume shop manager and costume designer here at NC State University Theater. And this is yet another episode of our How to Theater series, where our backstage staff will explore how to create theater, how to make all that theater magic from a technical perspective. I have Mia Self on chat for me. She is going to be monitoring the Q&A and the chat. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A, type them into the chat, and Mia will read them out loud for me because I am completely incapable of multitasking like that. So Mia is an awesome co-host, and I super appreciate her being here. So today, we're going to be going over zombies. So just as a content warning, since we are doing zombie makeup, we're going to be going over some zombie special effects. We will be dealing with stage blood, fake blood, and stage gore / fake gore. So if that's not your thing, you might want to shut this off right now and come back next week when we're doing our historic hand sewing techniques. But if you're cool with the stage blood and you're cool with the gore, please stick with us. So what's a zombie? Like what is a zombie? And that's actually a really hard thing to define. The legends of zombies have been around for millennia, and we have explored what a zombie actually means in popular culture in vastly different ways. And what's really fascinating is that the definition of a zombie and how a zombie is expressed is really a reflection on what society is currently afraid of. So the zombie myth really is a manifestation of whatever we're afraid of at that particular point in time. So we have our slow zombies, we've got like our Night of the Living Dead zombies back in the 60s, we've got our Walking Dead zombies, we've got our 28 Days Later zombies. I just started watching this new Netflix series, this like Russian Netflix series about a plague in Moscow, and that's like a sickness zombie. And so zombies are really going to manifest in these very different ways. So when you're thinking about your zombie makeup, what you want to do is figure out what type of zombie are you creating. If you're modeling it after a certain series or a certain genre, you're going to want to study and research how that zombie manifests within that particular world. If you don't have a particular world that you're trying to replicate, you need to figure out what your personal zombie rules are. How does a person become an undead or become a zombie, and how does that physically manifest in the body? And then once you figure that out, you got to figure out where your character is kind of in the zombie timeline. Because one of the things that I really loved about the Walking Dead was that we got to see how zombies aged throughout the lifespan of the series. So like season 1 was like 2 days after the zombie apocalypse, and so all the zombies were really fresh, and so their skin, their makeup was really more gory, more like fresh blood, and the skin tone was a little fresher. And then as the series progresses, the skin and the muscle and the blood just ages really in interesting sort of ways, and the skin's kind of falling off the skull, and they're doing some really wonderful things with special effects, showing how the body deteriorates even after a human being dies, and how that is manifested within this particular zombie universe. So you got to figure out when are you a new zombie or you an old zombie? Have you been wandering around for a couple of years, or did you just turn like an hour ago? So those things are really important as you're crafting your zombie makeup, so that you can reflect where you are in your story. So those are just some things that you really want to think about as you are planning your zombie makeup. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through a few techniques. I'm going to zombify myself. I did it this morning. It's super gross. It's a lot of fun. And I'm going for kind of a mashup of Night of the Living Dead and The Walking Dead. So I'm going to be pulling in some tropes from both of those so that we can experiment with some techniques. And what we're going to do today is we're actually going to mishmash a whole bunch of the techniques that we've gone over the past 3 weeks. So we're going to be doing things like the shading and contouring that we went through on our standard corrective stage makeup week. We're going to be going over some aging techniques, some of the lines that we learned how to draw on our face. And then of course, last week we went over gore and wounds, and we're going to be exploring some of those techniques in a little more detail. I'm going to show you some really fun things to do with that. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that your face is clean and prepped and ready to go. And when we're doing really heavy special effects makeup like this, you really want to make sure that you have on hand a really solid makeup remover, and you want to make sure that your face is really kind of clean and moisturized before you start piling on all of this liquid latex and prosthetics and stuff like that, because it's really, it can be damaging to your skin. So you want to protect your skin as much as possible. So prior to us starting our webinar today, I went ahead and I moisturized my skin. I gave myself a nice layer of protectant so that the makeup is not sitting directly on my skin. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to use a primer. And we talked about primers back in our corrective makeup week. And a primer is basically going to kind of give yourself a really solid base for the makeup, A, to stick to, but B, do some color correction. And as we're thinking about what sort of zombie we want to create, I'm going to be creating kind of a sickly, greenish, grayish sort of zombie. So what I want to do for my zombie is I want to neutralize all the red that I have going on in my face. I want to start with a really kind of muted whitish, grayish, greenish sort of color palette, and then I can selectively add in the red where I want it to be. So I'm going to start with my green color correcting primer, and that's going to neutralize all of the redness that naturally occurs in my face. So I'm just going to squirt some of that here and give myself a nice solid layer. And what's kind of fun about the zombie makeup is that it can be kind of messy. There are parts where you want it to be very, very detailed and very precise, but you know, there's also parts where you can legit just kind of slap stuff on your face and it still looks pretty great. All right, my eyes look red because I was using red eyeliner earlier this morning and I was not able to get all of it completely off. So that's why that's there. All right, so once you've got your face primed, now we're going to do a very light layer of foundation. We don't want to put too much foundation on because we're going to be covering a lot of it up. We're going to be adding lots and lots of layers, but a thin layer of foundation is going to give us a base to work from, and it's also going to act as a protectant against all of these kind of layers of liquid latex that we're going to be putting on our faces. And so I am going to, and my brushes and sponges are dirty because, again, I just practiced this. So I'm going to be starting with a really light base because I want my skin to look and feel kind of translucent. So I'm going to start really light. So I am actually going to start with a layer of cream white, like white makeup. And I'm just going to put this on really, really lightly. Oh, and the other thing that comes in really handy when you're doing any sort of special effects makeup is, as opposed to kind of basic stage corrective where street makeup is okay, when we're doing the special effects makeup, you really want to invest in some actual cream-based stage makeup. You're going to get a better color application, and it's also going to blend a lot easier. So as we're layering on all of these kind of funky shades, having the cream-based makeup is just going to make that an easier application for you. So I'm going to apply this light white to my face in just a nice light layer. But what color you use for your foundation really kind of depends on where you are in your zombie timeline and what your zombie world looks like. This kind of lighter color is really very classic. This is kind of Night of the Living Dead sort of base, but a lot of modern zombies have a much more natural base skin tone. So it just really kind of depends on what world you're living in. All right, there we go. So the next step is we're going to be doing some very, very rudimentary contouring. I don't want to spend too much time in detail on this because we're going to be covering a lot of it up with our special effects makeup, but this gives us kind of a base foundation to work from with our contouring. And so with our contouring, I'm actually going to be using a couple of different colors. Usually when we're doing a contouring, we're going in with a color that's darker than our natural skin tone. With zombie makeup, with special effects makeup, I'm going in with colors that are not even remotely close to my skin tone. So I'm going to start with this blue, and that's going to give me a really kind of translucent-y sort of washed out look. And then I'm going to go in with this purple, and that's going to give us some really, really fun shadow. And so for this particular application, I really want to hollow out the cheeks. I want to do a really firm line underneath the chin to kind of make my chin look a little more gaunt. And I want to definitely start getting some shadows in under the eyes and try to get my forehead sunken in a little bit. So we're gonna go in with this blue first, and this is gonna look really bold. Okay, I'm gonna go in under the chin. I'm gonna do a little here at the chin divot. Boop. Just gonna brush a little bit under the eyes, and we're gonna blend that out. And then a little bit here on the forehead to try to get that maybe a little up at the top here as well. All right, now I'm gonna go in with my darker purple, and we're gonna add another color on top of that. It really is a lot of kind of shading and blending to try to get everything to look natural as a zombie can be, because they don't exist. All right, now I'm going to go in with my makeup sponge. I'm just going to very kind of gently dab that out so that it's a little blended. We're not gonna, again, spend too much time on it because we're really going to layer on top of this, but we just wanna get some basic shapes roughed in. Okay, and then I'm going to go in again with my white and just kind of even up a little or blend out some of those sharper contour lines. I'm already getting that really nice kind of translucent feel to my skin, which is delightful. Okay, do a little, just a little shadow on the side. Oops, lost my makeup. A little shadow here on the side of the nose. All right, so that just gives us kind of our basic shapes. We're going to revisit contouring once we actually get all of our special effects application on, but this kind of lets us know in general where we're going so that we can use that as a map for our special effects makeup. So the first thing that we're going to work with is liquid latex. And just as we said last week, liquid latex is a latex product. So you want to make sure that you or the person that you're applying it to does not have latex allergies. This is latex. So if you're allergic to it, don't use it. There are some alternative things that you can use. You can use non-toxic white glue is a pretty popular alternative. It doesn't stick quite as well, but it's a pretty decent alternative if you have a latex allergy. But if you do not have a latex allergy, the liquid latex is a really, really great tool. And what I love about it is that you can color it. You can dye it using non-toxic. You can use food coloring as a dye colorant. And it also just comes in a variety of colors. So this is kind of a sickly green sort of liquid latex that we're going to use as our basis for a lot of our makeup application here today. So the first thing that we're going to do is I am going to do 3 special effects treatments on my face. I'm going to do a skin flap here on my right cheek. I'm going to do kind of an abrasion here on my left. And then I'm going to be doing like a gouge or a bite mark up on my forehead. And what's great about zombie makeup is that you can apply it in any way that you want, because each zombie is unique. Each zombie had its own afterlife experiences. And so it is going to, every zombie is going to look a little different. So you can even be a little different each time you apply your makeup. Sorry, I'm getting latex out of my brush here. All right. So for the skin flap, we're going to be using the liquid latex and toilet paper. And it's gonna go on in a couple of layers. So we're gonna actually multitask and do all of our special effects treatments kind of in tandem, giving the latex a little bit of time to dry. And I'll probably be hitting my face with a hair dryer here as well, just to kind of help that process. So the first thing we want to do is we want to plan out generally where our skin flap is going to go. And I think I want it to go, really, I want to kind of encompass this entire cheek. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my liquid latex. When it's in a big bottle like this, it's easier just to pour a little bit out into a palette or a little cup so that you can have a chunk of it to work with. You want to make sure that you are always putting your lid back on your big bottle, because the stuff dries out really, really quickly. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a thin layer of latex on this cheek here as my base. And if you have a lot of little baby hairs like I do, you will probably want to keep it away from your hairline, because it will catch and it's just really hard to get out. All right, and now what you're going to do is you're going to take a little piece of toilet paper and you're going to tear it so you get kind of a nice raw edge. And we are going to apply that toilet paper directly to that little pack of liquid latex and press it in. And what I really love about zombies in particular is that the tidiness of this really doesn't matter too much. The more untidy it is, actually kind of the cooler it looks. So we're gonna leave all of these kind of wrinkles all up in here. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back in and paint another thin layer of the latex on top of that toilet paper. And so the first layer is just to give the toilet paper something to stick to. And now what we're doing is we're building up this flap of skin that we are going to create. Yep, see, I didn't follow my own advice. I'm gonna have latex in my hair for the next 3 weeks. All right, so while that's drying, now we're gonna do our abrasion over here. So I'm going to do another layer of liquid latex. I'm gonna let that kind of get tacky, and then we're gonna go over how we actually create the abrasion effect. So let's just get a little bit of latex up here. Let that get tacky. All right, so to create the texture of the abrasion, we are going to actually use, again, non-toxic, safe materials. We're going to be using oatmeal. Oatmeal is going to create a really great texture. You can also use things like, this is kind of your standard Quaker Oats oatmeal. You can use a stone ground oatmeal, which has kind of a finer texture. I have a bag of rice around here somewhere. I can't find it. My station's a mess, y'all. But any sort of non-toxic substance you can apply to your face using this liquid latex. And when we apply makeup on top of that, it's good. It's not going to look like oatmeal anymore. So the trick when we're kind of working on this vertical surface is how do you get this to stick? And it can be a little tricky. What I found works best for me is if you get a little kind of clump of oatmeal in your hand and then kind of mix in a little bit of the latex to create, I don't know, a glob of oatmeal. And then we're going to carefully apply that glob to our face. It's not neat work. Stage makeup is not for the squeamish. I'm just going to leave it at that. We want to get a good bit of texture on there. Like so. There we go. That looks gross. And we're going to let that dry. And while that's drying, we're going to go up and we're going to create the bite or the wound up on the forehead. And to do that, we are going to use our scar wax or our nose wax. So this is a non-toxic, safe, skin-safe wax. You can get this through a couple of different companies. This is a Ben Nye that I like. And then we are going to need to put a tiny little dot of spirit gum wherever we want the wax to stick, because the wax is not going to stick directly to your skin. You need to give it a little something to stick to. So we do need to use our spirit gum. And I'm going to do my bite right here, I think. So we're going to paint the spirit gum first, and we're going to let that get tacky. And now I'm going to take my wax. Got a little spatula here. I'm going to carve out a chunk of wax. And just kind of soften it up, roll it up into a little ball. I want my kind of bite wound to be high off the head and be kind of round. Make sure your spirit gum is tacky enough. And then you can apply your wax directly to that mark. And you want to try to kind of feather out the edges of the wax so that it blends into your skin. It can help to use some sort of liquid. You can use a little water, you can use a little petroleum jelly to help blend in that wax, because the wax does tend to stick to your fingers, even though it doesn't want to stick to your forehead without help. It's tricksy like that. All right, so now we've got this really kind of lovely raised surface. Now what I'm going to do is, so that it matches all of this other kind of greenish goriness that I have going on here, I'm actually going to go in with my liquid latex. I'm just going to paint over that so that it matches. So all of my wounds live in the same disgusting zombie world. There we go. All right, so now we're just going to make that rotation again. I'm going to add a, yep, that's tacky enough. I'm going to add a second layer of latex to my skin flap. And you can see the color difference here, how this is kind of lighter colored as it's wet, and that this is a little darker colored as it dries. And again, I don't really care too much about the application being perfect because we're going to blend that out with makeup, and also zombies are gross. I'm going to take another little bit of toilet paper and apply that directly on top. There we go. And give it another layer. And so what's nice about the liquid latex is that it's very flexible, it's very pliable. If you use your foundation and use your moisturizer, it actually just kind of peels off the skin relatively easily. Sometimes it gets a little stuck, but you can kind of edge some makeup remover underneath it to kind of help it come off. But if you get sunburned a lot and you like peeling sunburns, then peeling off liquid latex is going to be your favorite thing. All right, so we're gonna let that dry as well. I need a little more latex here. And we're just gonna give our oatmeal and our wax another layer so that they're completely covered. They don't have to sleep. All right, that's actually tacky enough. I'm going to just go ahead and add my last layer of toilet paper on top. And we're gonna cover it with another layer of the latex. And the reason why we're building up so much toilet paper and latex here is because we are eventually, once this is dry, we're going to go in and we're actually going to cut this open very carefully and peel it back to replicate that kind of skin peeling look. It's gross. It's awesome. All right, we're gonna give that another look. There we go. And then while all that is drying, I am going to actually take one of my little stipple sponges here. I'm just going to use some of my leftover latex and kind of just stipple on a little bit of texture. And that's just going to help blend some of this out. You don't want to get it too close to your eyes. That's going to blend this out, and it's just going to give our makeup a little bit of something extra to grab onto so that it has just a little more texture and it looks a little more natural and interesting. All right, so I'm gonna hit my face with a hair dryer to get especially this part dry so that we can move on to the next step. So. Obviously you can just let it air dry, but just for the sake of time, I air dried that for us. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to create our skin flap. And what we're going to do, and if you do this, you have to be really, really careful because we're actually going to take our scissors and we're going to cut into this layer of latex so that we stay safe. What we want to do is to peel up an edge here so that we get underneath, and you can see how this is pulling away from my skin. I've got my skin here, I've got my layers of latex and toilet paper here, and I'm going to cut directly into that. If you're a child, please have a grown-up help you with this. Thanks, friends. All right, we're gonna do this super, super carefully. Just do little snips and work your finger, kind of like putting butter underneath a turkey. I want to go in that direction. So you can see how I'm really working that latex away from my skin before I'm going in with the scissors, so I don't accidentally cut myself. There we go. Now I think I'm gonna give it a little bit of a raw edge. Kind of pull and tear the edge to give it a little more texture. All right, and now I'm going to go in with just a little bit of latex, and I want to kind of repaste down this bit that we pulled off so that we can cut safely. So I'm going to paste down that top cut, leave the bottom one pulled back. All right, now I'm gonna hit that with the air dryer one more time just to get that set. All right, so you can see we have the base of our skin flap here. It's nice and flappy. It's got good texture to the sides. I'm just gonna let that dry on its own for a little bit, and we're gonna work with our abrasion here on my left cheek. So what we wanna do before we kind of start working the rest of our makeup is we wanna get the color on all of this roughed in. So I'm going to use what am I gonna use? I'm gonna use my makeup sponge here, and I'm just going to rough in some red on top of this. So we're just gonna start bringing out that texture. So you can see just by even pressing a little bit of makeup on top of that, how much it really helps that oatmeal pop, and it looks much less like oatmeal and it looks much more like zombie grossness. And I think I want to kind of fill in all of these little kind of valleys in my oatmeal here. So I'm gonna go in with my red and really try to paint that in. I've got this little guy down here too. Boop, 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 boop. All right. Oh, okay, Cameron, how long did it take me to get the hang of the special effects look? I've been doing makeup and stage makeup for probably 6 or 7 years, so not very long. Honestly, when I'm bored at home on a Saturday night, I will pull out my makeup kit and I'll just practice and play. So a lot of these techniques are actually really, really easy to do on the first or second try. And then refining them, that can take a lifetime. So it's kind of like learning how to color versus learning how to do oil painting. You know, you learn how to color when you're in kindergarten, and then with practice, you work yourself up to like really, really excellent technique. I'm probably on the lower to middle edge of things because I do this mostly for funsies. We don't do a lot of gory sort of makeup here at University Theater, but it is an awful lot of fun to play with. So here I'm using some purple and my stipple sponge, and I'm just going in and adding a little more depth and texture to this abrasion. So you can see how layering that red underneath and then almost doing like a dry sponge technique on top of that gives that a lot of really fun texture like that. And then on top of that, to make it look a little shiny, we're gonna put some blood on top of that later, but just to kind of even it out a little bit, we can add a little white on top of that. And that just gives it a little more texture. All right, I'm pretty happy with that for now. I lied. I'm gonna go in and just do a little bit more shadow around the edges.
Laura, are you using a color wheel for that?
I am using the I'm using the Ben Nye bruise wheel for this. So the bruise wheel has this really great bright red, the yellow, which we'll use momentarily, that purple, and kind of a burgundy red. So this is really great for all sorts of wounds.
And I put the link for the Ben Nye special effects makeup collections.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and there are lots of companies that make bruise wheels or stage makeup like this. I prefer the Ben Nye because I know that my skin reacts well to it, and I know that the quality and color is always really consistent. Other folks have other favorites, so you find what works best for you.
And this is the kit that the students purchased for the stage makeup class, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so the bruise wheel comes in that basic cream stage makeup kit. Some of the other colors that I'm using in here do not come with that. The zombie colored latex I purchased separately, and the blue cream I purchased separately, but most everything else I think is actually in that kit. That kit does come with a little bottle of liquid latex, but it is flesh toned as opposed to zombie toned. All right, that feels pretty good. And that is pretty dry. So now we're gonna do kind of the same thing in here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to add a lot of color here to make this look like kind of exposed muscle. We're going to need to paint the underside of the skin flap here as well. So I'm gonna start with this bright red. And you wanna try to work it down into that, where that flap is kind of pulling away from the skin. And now we're going to paint this actual piece of latex / tissue paper. And I will say that this is a time-consuming process. So if you're planning on doing this for your physically distanced, safe Halloweens this year, make sure you give yourself plenty of time and practice beforehand. I think Halloween is on Saturday this year, so try it out on Friday night. All right, that's gonna be a good start. I'm just gonna dab a little bit up here. Dab, 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 dab. All right, so we're gonna go back in on my same little bruise wheel here and use my little stipple sponge and bring in some of this purple. And that's just gonna tone that down quite a bit. And now I'm going to go in with some burgundy and just stipple over that a little bit, just to give it a little texture. There we go. We already look gross. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is we're going to deal with our bite up here. So remember, I have a big old lump of wax underneath my liquid latex here. So I am going to take my little spatula here, and I'm just going to insert that. This is a plastic spatula, but it does have kind of a sharp tip, so you need to be careful. I'm gonna stick that inside the wax and just open up that wound very carefully. You wanna make sure that you're not actually pulling the wax off of your face. You just wanna shape it. All right, that looks disgusting. So now I'm gonna go back in with my red. Use a smaller brush this time and kind of do the same thing. So I'm gonna get that base of red at the very center of that bite wound. Color that in. Get a little burgundy in there. And then top it off with a little of that purple. There we go. All right, so that is our base special effects. So you can see that we're using some pretty, we're using the same supplies for all three. We're using our wax, our liquid latex, oatmeal, and our stage makeup.
Do you ever build these onto like a table and saran wrap and then peel them off and then stick them onto your face, or do you always build them directly onto your skin?
You can do either. I personally prefer to build it directly onto my skin, just because I tend to worry about kind of the moving the prosthetic from point A to point B. But yes, you can definitely lay out a piece of saran wrap on the table, build up your liquid latex, and then use either the latex or the spirit gum to apply the built up prosthetic to your face. So you can do it either way. And if it's something that you're going to want to use and reuse as many times as possible, they don't always live very long. Kind of building it on the table so that it's more like a flat prosthetic is probably a better option. For something like Halloween makeup, I tend to just do it to my face. So thank you for asking that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to start blending all this latex into my actual skin. And so what I've done, since my latex is this kind of green base, I have mixed up in a little plastic bag wrapped around a lid. I have mixed up some foundation that matches my skin tone with some green. That's going to mimic this green here as well. So I'm going to use that and start to apply it to my face around these prosthetics. And remember, you'll need to do this on any skin that's going to be exposed. I'm not going to go down too far on my neck because reasons, but if anything that's going to be exposed or visible, you're going to want to make sure that you are hitting with your base foundation. And you can see where I've added that latex. Oops, that was a lot of green. Oh well, we'll work with it. Where I added that latex up here on the forehead, that's giving us some really kind of nice texture. That's a lot of fun. All right, and that is feeling a little on the green side to me. I hit that spot of green hard, so I'm gonna go in with a little bit of just foundation that more matches my skin tone. We're going to dab that out a little bit. All right, so now we're going to go in with our shadow. So the thing about zombies is that their faces tend to be really, really sunken in. So we've got a good bit of prosthetic kind of covering up our cheekbones, but I still have some area I can work with here. And we want to make the eyes look really sunken. We will make the nose look really sunken, and we want our chin to look sunken as well. So I'm going to go in with my shadow here, my purple, and start getting that in place much more heavily now that we have the latex in place. And then you go in and you blend all that shadow in. And you do have to be careful when you're applying it kind of around the edges of the latex. If you don't want to pull those edges up, it's better to kind of dab than to pull. I'm gonna really accentuate that chin there. Now remember, we've got a little bit of latex up here, so I'm gonna dab so I don't move that where I don't want it to go.
So while you're blending, Cameron has a question. Do you have other special effect makeup looks that you enjoy recreating?
You know, I'm honestly not a big special effects makeup person. I like to do, I like to explore historic makeup techniques. So what does makeup look like in the 16th century versus the 18th century versus the 1920s? That I find personally really interesting. I am doing a zombie costume for Halloween this year. Not a zombie costume, a vampire costume. So I will be playing with vampire makeup this weekend. So we'll see how that goes.
What kind of vampire look are you going for?
I'm going for that kind of Interview with the Vampire, kind of translucent-y sort of vampire. We'll see how it works. All right, so I think what I want to do next is I want to work with the eyes a little bit and try to make these look really, really, yes, Lestat realness for sure. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to make these eyes look really, really sunken. So I'm gonna go in with my just basic eyeshadow palette, and I've got some black, and we're going to really start shadowing this out some. Blending that in. A lot of it, honestly, is dabbing and blending until you get the look that you want. I'm gonna go in on the eyelid here. Start to add some shadow and shape there. All right, now I'm going in with some of that cream purple above the eyes, again at the eyelid, above the eyes, trying to hollow those out a little bit. And you know, what I think is really interesting and what because you're always learning, what I have learned a lot from doing these webinars is that lighting matters, because I did my trial, my test run of this earlier this morning with just in the mirror without the big old ring light here. And the colors that I need to apply to get it to look like really, really visible on the screen and with the brighter lights are much, much darker than I had to apply this morning. So as you're kind of playing with these techniques, definitely think about your lighting and think about where you're going to be wearing this and what it's going to look like. If you're doing it for stage, your colors are just going to need to be much darker and much bolder than you think that they're going to. And it's going to look weird in the mirror. Like looking in the mirror that I have above my camera here, it's like, whoa, it's really, really dark. But with this bright ring light kind of flashing in my face, it washes everything out. So that's, you know, if you're a stage actor, that's why myself or Mia or your director or anybody else is generally going to tell you, you know, go a little darker. You need to color in your eyebrows because those are going to get washed out. Your colors just need to be a lot bolder. All right, I'm going to go in with a little bit of yellow here now to kind of bruise that out a little bit and make it look a little more sickly. Because your zombie can never look sickly enough. I think I'm going to go in with a little bit of bruising on the nose as well. So just kind of across that bridge of the nose. Gross. All right, so what I found was fun for me is, like I said, I'm watching this Netflix series about, I don't know, some Russian virus in Moscow, and everybody gets sick and turns into fast zombies, like 28 days later zombies. And they have this, the thing that people, the visual that people have to make it look like they're zombies is they get these really great rings of red around their eyes. And as I was watching that last night at midnight, I was really creeped out about it. So we're gonna put some red under and around our eyes. I just think it looks creepy. Gonna get kind of in the corner here. And then I'm gonna go in with that dark burgundy and just add a little dimension to that. I think I'll go in with the burgundy on the top eyelid as well. And let's do some red around the nose, around the nostril. Ooh, I had some purple on that finger. It all works. All right, and I'm also going to add some red to the corners of my mouth here. We're eventually going to add some blood there too, but this is just going to give us a base. And see how that adds just a really nice kind of translucent shadow there. All right, so where I'm going to go next, I think, is I want to add some veins to my face, some visible veins that are coming through the skin. So I'm going to take my, see if I have a tinier brush. I think that's a tinier brush. I'm going to take my teeny tiniest brush and I'm going to just sketch in some veins using this burgundy. I'll darken up the corners of the eyes a little bit. There we go. And you know, I think I'm gonna go in, there's not a lot of black on here, but I think I'm gonna go in with just a little bit of black, just a little bit on my finger, and just darken up those circles under the eyes just a little more. I want that to be really, really hollowed, and they're not looking as hollowed as I want them to. I want them to look like day 4 of Tech Week hollow. Theater joke. Add some color back to my eyebrows since I lost them. All right, so now we're gonna deal with my lips. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with a bright red first and dab it on gently and kind of cover my whole lips. And for this look, I don't want it to look too bright, so I'm just going on with a very light layer just to give it a little bit of color. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with my purple and I'm going to purse my lips and kind of tap it on top of my pursed lips. And that texture that I get will add a little bit of texture and a little bit of wrinkle to my lips, kind of like we do with old age makeup. Here we go. Now I'm going to go in, I'm going to just add a little bit of stipple detail around all these edges just to kind of add a little texture. And now I'm going in with my skin tone foundation just over this, just to blend it out one more last time. And that also makes it just look a little more translucent, which I like. All right, I am relatively happy with that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go in with our stage blood, and we're going to add some bloody effects to this. Like we talked about last week, when we're putting fake blood, stage blood on our face, we need to make sure that we are using the non-toxic edible stage blood. And so for anything that goes on my face, I use my corn syrup based blood recipe. And so what's in here is a whole bunch of corn syrup, a couple drops of red food coloring, a couple of drops of blue or purple food coloring, and that's going to tone down that red so it looks a little more realistic. And then I also usually throw in some cocoa powder to darken it up and to thicken it up a little bit and give it a little more texture. So because everything that I just said comes out of your kitchen cabinet, this is all edible and this is all non-toxic. So anything that goes on your face, you're going to want to make sure that you get out of the baking aisle at the grocery store, things that are meant to be eaten, because we don't want to accidentally ingest something that that's going to make us sick. So anything goes on the face, I use my corn syrup based blood recipe. You can also purchase edible blood, edible stage blood online. There are lots of companies that make it, but it's super cheap to make yourself. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my blood, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go over this, I'm going to go over this, just to make those wounds look nice and fresh. Let's start over here. And you can see how the shininess of the corn syrup just really adds a nice texture to that, a nice shine that makes that look nice and fresh. Now I'm going to do the same thing on our skin flap here. Going to get down in that little valley. Make sure you get the actual flap itself. Those little flaps can be challenging. Get a little. And now I'm going to get the interior of this little wound thing, and I'm going to just use a Q-tip for that. It feels like it'll be a little easier. There we go. See, it's edible. Tastes like chocolate. It's good. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to smear, this is not a very tidy thing. I'm gonna smear some of this on my mouth and kind of dripping down my chin, because what do zombies do? They eat brains. So you're gonna get a lot of blood on kind of this area of your face. And then we're just gonna do a splatter effect. Actually, let me move one thing before I splatter.
You have slightly less than 15 minutes.
Great. Well, I am almost done. So I just didn't want to splatter on the clothes rack there. All right, so I'm going to just dip my fingers in to my blood. And now I'm gonna do that. And the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip, and this is the messy part, and I'm gonna flick this on my face. Housekeeping, it's not gonna know what hit this room. There you go. And once you do that little flick, you get some really, really great natural blood effects going on there. And so you can see it's really messy, but it can be a lot of fun, and it can be super gross and gory. So yeah, so zombify yourself this Halloween. Send us pictures. I want to see your gross selves. There are, I don't have any. You can purchase teeth blackening stuff. Ben Nye sells a teeth blackener. I wouldn't use food coloring because that's going to stain your teeth, but the Ben Nye stuff washes out. It actually tastes minty. And you can blacken your teeth, which gives you a really, really great kind of zombie effect. I don't have any though, and I didn't want to buy any just for this. So, but you can do that, and that kind of finishes it off. You can do things like you can smear the blood into your hair. You can use your fake blood to distress your costume, to distress this, because this is food coloring, it's not going to wash out really easily. So anything that you use this on, is probably going to be red for the rest of its life. So you want to make sure that it's something that you really don't care about. Go to the thrift store, buy a couple of pieces of clothing for your costume, and distress them and zombify yourself. So that's what I have. Does anybody have any questions?
What's your favorite zombie movie?
Oh, what's my favorite zombie movie? I've got two. I love Shaun of the Dead because it's hilarious and it's also terrifying. And then I really like 28 Days Later. I'm terrified of fast zombies. I can handle slow zombies, but those crazy fast, like zombies because of a virus thing zombies, those terrify me. So I do not like fast zombies. So 28 Days Later is awesome. Do you have a favorite zombie movie, Mia?
Shaun of the Dead is my favorite because I grew up with the Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Living Dead, all of those movies. But I'm a coward, and so a funny zombie movie makes it bearable for me to watch them.
And it's hilarious. It's really good. I need to watch that this weekend. Maybe I'll do that. Awesome. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, I'm going to leave you like this.
We're done at the end of the evening. What's the best plan of attack for cleanup?
That is a really great question. So the best, all my cleanup stuff is in the bathroom, or else I would demonstrate. But the best plan of attack is going to be to use your makeup remover first and get as much of the actual makeup off of your face. And then you can go in and you can start peeling off the liquid latex. So for stuff like this, where it's already kind of has an edge, you can very gently just kind of peel that off your skin like that. If it's sticking, like it's a little sticky right here, you can go in and you can use some makeup remover and to kind of loosen that up a little bit. Up here where I did the latex kind of dabs, combination of just scrubbing with a good exfoliant is going to get a lot of that liquid latex off, using your makeup remover, using your makeup wipes and that sort of thing. So really getting as much of the makeup off with a makeup remover, going in, peeling off your latex prosthetics, and then giving your face just like a really, really nice, gentle exfoliating is gonna get all of kind of those little bits off. Oh, I got blood all over me, y'all. So gross.
You. Cameron made a comment. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us, Cameron. This is a lot of fun. I can't believe I get paid to do this, y'all. This is my job. Like, that's amazing. So thank you so much for joining us here. I hope everybody has a safe and happy Halloween. Send me pictures of your Halloween costumes because it's my favorite holiday.